Hi everyone, John Han with the Pulsing Cinema, and the movie of the day is Nosferatu the Vampyre from 1979. Film from Bavarian German director Werner Herzog. A horror movie. Well, kind of what you'd call a horror movie based on the classic silent film from F.W. Murnau starring Max Schreck. A creepy silent film. But, of course, it's silent and it's old, so we've got to do a remake of it. And what better person to do a remake of this German film than the great post-war German director Werner Herzog. And what a film it is. I don't have a hell of a lot to say about it. Werner Herzog's more of an art house director, a director who's more at home with making films about people who want to build opera houses in the Amazon desert and towns full of midgets and towns full of people who've been hypnotized and people who move to America and lose all their money and decide to live in a trailer. And his filmography is very diverse and strange, but I guess you could argue that the filmography of most post-World War II German directors is kind of diverse and crazy and all over the place. You could think of Wim Wenders as another big example of that. It's a good film. The average audience could see it as a horror film and take it at face value, and that would be it. Herzog's films are very kind of languid and slow. There's lots of sequences that are very meditative scenes, handheld scenes, but very purposely shot almost in a documentary sense, of going through these areas. Nosferatu begins with these catacombs where we see, I think it's in Guanajuato, the famous mummies of Guanajuato, where there are these mummified corpses that are kind of standing out in this catacomb area where you can go up to them and say hi. I don't know if that's where this was shot. It seems like that's where it's shot, but it could be in some other famous catacomb in Europe or something that I'm not aware of. But we see all of these shots of mummies, real, mummified corpses, and we see these slow motion shots of these bats, and then there's the countryside, and Jonathan Harker is played by Bruno Ganz. Bruno Ganz, who's now most famous for starring in about 1,000,000,001 downfall parody movies on YouTube. Nosferatu himself is the crazed Klaus Kinski, who plays this thing like a drug addict. He's like this very, he has this kind of rat sensibility. He plays this kind of almost this drug addict, humanoid rat thing who just kind of like an illness begins to invade the countryside. Mina Harker is Isabella Gianni of Possession, of other, the European art house ingenue. At this stage, that she was this porcelain-faced, husky-voiced little porcelain doll of an actress who just, with this impossibly perfect skin, she plays, Mina Harker, that object of femininity who eventually sacrifices herself to this vampire. Which you could spin that in women's studies about a billion and two ways. There are probably how many term papers, how many bachelor's theses have been built off of Nosferatu. I couldn't. It's probably you couldn't even count them. There's so many. The ideas of Nosferatu so rife with symbolism and. And Herzog is a filmmaker who can really, who has the stylish, who can produce the imagery, and make a film that is, really strange and special and just totally unique. It's not of course, the look of Nosferatu and the basic plot details are from the original film, but Herzog makes it into his own. He makes it into his own European art house horror hybrid, and I think this is really the only horror film that he's done. But the film was released by 20th Century Fox in the United States, released in an English language version. And it was not a dubbed version. Actually, the film was shot in both English and German. They actually did a take. They would do a series of takes in English and then do a series in German. So the actual characters like Bruno Ganz and Kinski are speaking their native German language. Isabella Gianni, I believe, is dubbed in German. And then she's in the English language version. Everybody, Kinski and Bruno Ganz, are actually speaking English as well. So overall, I mean, and there were some really complex scenes or scenes where there wasn't any dialogue, which were only shot once. And then there were some complex scenes that were just too complex to shoot twice, so they were like dubbed in German. And then of course there also is a French dub of this film where everybody's dubbed, and I think Kinski may be speaking. In these European films it gets kind of muddy and complex because to find out what is the integral language of a film like Italian films, it's kind of like, and many times English is the integral language of the film. In the case of Nosferatu, the director, because he's German, prefers the German version. Some people say Bruno Ganz and Kinski act better in the German version. I've seen both. I mean, I was really attached to the English version. The English version is the first version I saw of this film. I saw it on Encore years ago when it played on cable. And then I've subsequently mainly watched the English version. I have watched the German version. I don't see a huge amount of difference. Personally, for me, most of the actors speak English, and they speak they have their own voice in English. So for me, that's the integral. But again, it may be a film which I need to reassess and go see in German. See the German language version and see if that's still better to me. But a great film, Nosferatu, made by Herzog's almost like the German answer to David Lynch. It's weird. I was just thinking about that, or maybe David Lynch is the German is the American Herzog. I don't know, because Herzog was like making films before David Lynch, but I mean. Herzog's not like David Lynch or like The Moon and the Sun's Gotta Be Right and he'll only make a movie when this and that. Herzog's like, fuck it, let's go and shoot, Let's go run in the mountain and shoot stuff. I mean, he makes like 5 documentaries a year. He makes all this television shit. He does all these films for everybody. He'd probably do television commercials if he could get the work. If he could get the work, he'd probably do a fucking, goddamn, Michelin tire commercial. He doesn't give a fuck. He's wild. He's up for it. He's game. He's a little bit, but I don't know. There is there is a semblance of a similarity between those two filmmakers. And in fact, Absurda produced one of Herzog's, David Lynch's production company, produced one of Herzog's recent films, My Son, What Have You Done? And 20th Century Fox, man, in the 70s, man, they released some crazy, they were into European films. They released in the U.S., what did they release? Suspiria, Inferno, and then they bought Phantom of the Paradise, and then this film. I mean, they had a good slate of really offbeat films there. Wow. But anyway, getting back to Nosferatu. Yeah, Nosferatu, the great movie, great poster, a great performance by Kinski, of course. Kinski would actually later go on to do like a unofficial sequel to this film, though by that point it was the late 80s Kinski who had gone insane and he didn't want to do the makeup, he didn't want to shave his head, So it's like Nosferatu, but he looks totally different. He just looks like Klaus Kinski. And he's a vampire. Okay, but the original Nosferatu the Vampire, the original remake, Herzog, 1979. Isabella Gianni, Bruno Ganz, great.